Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
Ooh, another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me to dissect the Juice episode 2 on the Tennessee Athletics YouTube page and nothing else from the weekend. We've got Ethan Stone of Saturday Down South. Ethan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. Tennessee just had a fantastic weekend at the NCAA tournament. The overall tournament itself was a little underwhelming, but I still love to watch college ball, and there's more coming on Thursdays, so I'm happy as a clam.
Hey, my real Super Bowl came out this evening with the Juice Pro Day. Who says no? 9 minutes of just electric Mike Keith voiceover work? No, that's where my mind's gone. So who cares about the Sweet 16? You've been there 3 straight years. It's time for some more Tennessee football hype videos this offseason. That's what this podcast is built on, is moments like that when those drop. Because today I got nothing. Ryan Schumpert of Rocket Top Insider, because what's the deal in practice? Because there's no video, no B-roll, no royalty-free music for Tennessee being back this week, and it's not ideal. It's not ideal in the Chase Thomas household.
Practice was not open to the media today. It will be back open on Tuesday, so you should be able to get your hit of practice footage done.
Dun 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 dun. I'm so excited. It's electric stuff. You get that first cup of coffee, and you don't
even need the first cup of coffee. That's the first cup of coffee.
That is true.
The cup of coffee is like a placebo for you, but the highlights, that's the practice highlights. That's the real caffeine. That's the real juice.
You go to a meeting and you're like, "Hey, my name's Chase Thomas. I'm addicted to Tennessee practice videos with a certain kind of B-roll and a certain kind of royalty-free music, and I can't quit. I can't not watch it. I can't really function throughout the day without it start my day. But that's just, it's great content. It's great content. And in all seriousness, we will be talking Tennessee basketball on the men's side of things here. Ethan Stone, Tennessee, they win. They're back in the Sweet 16 for the 3rd straight year. They take care of UCLA and Wofford over the weekend, and both were impressive wins for kind of the same reason, just the kind of style and the way they played and how they were able to just kind of slowly destroy both Wofford and UCLA over the weekend. But matchup wise, it felt like the best case scenario for Tennessee in the opening weekend, with just Wofford and UCLA style, and Utah State being the kind of, we wondered with their offense, and their offense being, I think, 1 spot above Tennessee and KenPom coming into the tournament. It's like, all right, it made more sense to get a team who tries to play like Tennessee, and Tennessee is like, well, you're not going to play that game, and you would bet on Tennessee to win those kind of matchups, but can't avoid it on Friday against Kentucky, and we'll get to that here in a bit. But what was your strongest takeaway from the weekend for Tennessee hoops?
Yeah, first off, I'm very interested, I guess, looking back, if Tennessee had gotten Utah State, because ultimately I kind of think Tennessee wins either game fairly convincingly. Yeah. UCLA was just disgusting on perimeter defense wise. I think Utah was like 4 of 31 or something crazy like that, which has to be close to their lowest total on the season. So I feel like it would have been a lot of the same with Tennessee, just because of how impressive defensively, especially. I mean, Wofford was hitting threes like crazy, but UCLA, especially after the first half, the first 10 minutes or so, really kind of when Mara, their 7-3 guy, went out, I feel like it just kind of went off the rails for them. And we'll talk more about that obviously later. But I'd say rebounding, honestly, is probably what I took most from. Not necessarily the Wofford game, because it was kind of intermediate. I believe it was tied. I think it was at 31-31 for Tennessee and Wofford. But going to the UCLA game, especially, like I said, after the first 10 minutes, Tennessee kind of dominated in the second half. And I think a lot of that has to do with the rebounding. The Vols turned the ball over a lot on against UCLA. And the Bruins had more shots, I believe. I think 4 or 5 more shots from the field than Tennessee did. And the defense, especially going into the second half, I mean, it was just suffocating. They had nowhere to go. The Sky Clark had a 3 every once in a while. Vitello had like a turnaround jump shot that he could get every once in a while as well. But it felt like once Mara got out of there, not necessarily because of him, but it just collapsed everything they were trying to do on offense. And like I said, we'll talk about that more in a minute. But I'm just really overall, I'm very impressed with how they played against UCLA. I think it was one of the more impressive coaching jobs of the season by Barnes. And it's as smooth of a first weekend I feel like as you can have without too many worries, except for maybe the final 5 minutes of that UCLA game. But ultimately, the game was in hand at that point.
I don't know. I hope Cade didn't get chewed out for those final moments because look, he played his tail off on Saturday night. Cade had a great game against UCLA and was really huge for the team. And Ryan wrote about it in terms of the rebounding aspect and Tennessee winning on the boards, being as thin as they are, and how big UCLA was extremely impressive. But Ryan, what did you make of the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, you're kind of past the takeaways part of the season. It's just about win the games. Like, I think Tennessee knows who they are. I don't think we're going to see a ton new about Tennessee at this point, but it was just business-like. I think you have to like the fact that Chaz Lanier, first NCAA tournament, came out and played well. Did not seem to make too much in the moment. Didn't seem nervous or anything like that. The rebounding, I think, is a big thing that Ethan hit on because that's been a weakness for this Tennessee team, at least over the last month or so. And that, I mean, I sent it into our group a couple times and was sitting in some other groups. I typed it a lot over the course of the game on Sunday and the day on Sunday. Just take care of the basketball, rebound the basketball. Tennessee beats UCLA. Tennessee's a better team than UCLA. They are built the same way. They do those two things, they will win the game. And they did an okay job of taking care of the basketball until the last 6 minutes, which were just disgusting taking care of the basketball. But luckily the game was over at that point. It didn't matter. And they rebounded well. So I think that's seeing Tennessee do what they needed to do. It just felt like business-like. And even going back to the Wofford game, like that was a recipe for how a team loses as a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. There were, I think, 56, 57 possessions for Tennessee. Incredibly low possession game. Wofford hit double-digit three-pointers, shot 40% from three-point line. Like, that's how you lose an NCAA. That's a recipe to start how you lose an NCAA tournament game. And Tennessee obviously never completely ran away with it, but the game was really never in any danger either. It never felt like Tennessee was pressing or panicked or in any time it felt like the game got to like 8 or 9 or 10, Tennessee immediately responded with a bucket or a nice little run. So business-like would be the way I'd describe the first weekend, and that's really all that matters is just winning all these games and surviving.
It was just, I mean, that was kind of the takeaway for the weekend for most of the top seeds. It was just like outside of the Marylands, like there wasn't a whole lot of drama where they just kind of took care of business. Tennessee was one of those teams that just kind of, coasting just I think is not fair because it makes it seem like it was just this easy thing that Tennessee was able to do, especially against UCLA and the way UCLA played. But it did, to their testament, like as a compliment, that they did coast. Like they were like after that early start from UCLA where it looked like, oh, this could be like 1st to 20. I think I said that in the group chat where I'm like, okay, this could be the kind of gross rock fight. Where Tennessee, because of the foul calls, like that was where I was just mostly worried, was like if Tennessee gets in some serious foul trouble, whether it's Chaz, Jemai, Felix, you're like, okay, well, this could get dicey because you are super thin. The way they're calling this game, and Mara, they just keep dumping it to him, and he just puts Tennessee's bigs into foul trouble. It's like, okay, well, you don't have any options. So if that's how they're going to call this game, then Tennessee's going to have some problems potentially. But that's ultimately, thankfully, not what happened there, because I just felt like without Tennessee getting in serious foul trouble, UCLA was just not going to win that basketball game. And they just gradually got overwhelmed. And I think we have to talk about this. Like Chaz Lanier was great again. Like Chaz is, as someone who just never misses in predictions on this very program, my take that Chaz Lanier was going to have a great tournament and he was set up to have a great tournament just has aged gracefully. And it just is a testament to sticking with your beliefs going into tournament time. And
you needed Utah State is who you really needed. You really needed them to play Utah State because I think your take would have been perfect then. Because UCLA plays kind of like the SEC teams play.
Yeah.
Were you Utah State zone defense, you would have gotten a lot of open shots. You probably would have made like 2 or 3 more threes than he made.
Yeah.
You would have really been cooking. You would have been
Chaz was cooking,
James
man.
Pierce.
Chaz has been great. Like Chaz has been fantastic.
1,000%. Yeah.
I think he's 18 from 3 in the tournament so far. He was 6 of 13 and like 4 of So he's 10 of 18. I mean, that's as good as you can ask for.
And he's so comfortable. Like he's just confident. Like you can tell Chaz has a level of confidence he did not have 2 months ago. There is just a lot of comfort right now with Chaz, and I just feel like he has settled in completely into. Yeah. It's the opposite of Igor. Like Igor, it's just complete. Like I don't know, man. Like Igor was not like the rebounding was super helpful against UCLA, but he did not have another good weekend, and it did not matter ultimately for Tennessee. Because I think Akbar obviously was great. We talked about Cade. Cade was awesome against UCLA. And I wonder kind of too with this fouls trouble, like him getting those 2 fouls. Like I wonder what he would have looked like the rest of the game if he didn't get those fouls in the first half. But Sakai hit some shots that were important. Like Sakai made threes, and Tennessee just when Sakai's hitting threes, it's another one where I'm like they're really hard to beat when Sakai's hitting threes and he's taking a lot of threes and gaining, driving to the rim. 3-point shots weren't there for him still ultimately a little bit, but I mean he just does so many other things. Huh?
He hit 3 out of them against UCLA.
Did he have 3?
Yep.
Yeah.
How many did he take?
2 of them. 6.
Okay. Maybe that's what it was.
Just insane. Zakai.
Yeah.
The one where Zakai drives baseline.
What did he have against Wofford then?
Dead. I thought he was dead to rights. And he finds him in the corner late in the first half when, again, first half scoring was at a premium for Tennessee.
He was 0 for 1 from 3 against Wofford. He didn't really shoot much.
That's what I was wondering. Okay. Yeah, and he still had 3 assists, 2 boards, went to the line 3 times, but he just does other stuff. Like Jordan Gainey just does other stuff that's super helpful, and we've talked about that a lot on this program here. But switching gears here a little bit, Ryan, your 3 quick takeaways that I thought were pretty fascinating in terms of the UCLA game coming out of it on Sunday. Now that it's been a day since you wrote that, of the 3 big headlines of that piece, which one do you still feel the most strongly about?
Well, I think the one about Tennessee winning the middle 10 minutes of the game, like that's where the game was won. Like the game was very up in the air with 5 minutes left in the first half. If anything, UCLA was, I wouldn't go as far to say in control, but they had led for most of the game to that point, and everything felt very difficult for Tennessee on the offensive end. Tennessee uses the press to get some easy buckets, takes the lead at halftime, and then you just saw it boom right from the jump. UCLA turns the ball over first possession of the second half. Sakai and 1 got the 3rd foul for Daly, I think it was, driving right at him, and Tennessee just coasted from there. So I think from the game specifically, that's the case. But is the long term, it's what we talked about with the interior defense and the rebounding, and I think. Talking in the locker room to some players and coaches, like there was a sense of 2 things. 1, UCLA's big men can't beat us. We'll let them play isolation 1-on-1. They're not good. They will not score enough points to beat us that way. And then 2, I think there was a general belief, not that everything was perfect, but in the first 10 minutes of the game, like the post defense has been pretty good. They're just hitting shots. Like stay with it. Don't overreact. Don't panic to this. They'll eventually miss some shots. And I think that was the case. I mean, the Mara guy, like his role was so expanded this weekend. Like I think you saw a guy plays 10 minutes a game, get tired playing 20 to 25 minutes against a team that's as physical as Tennessee and a team that made him work for everything that he got. I think you saw that. I thought you saw completely him being tired and him not being as effective because of that. And Bilodeau still made plays, but again, Tennessee just didn't let him get anything easy. So I think, Tennessee needs that at the baseline moving forward from that group. They need to rebound. They've lost 2 games all season when they've won the rebounding battle, both of them against who they will play on Friday night in Indianapolis. There will probably come a point in the season. I don't know if it's Friday. I don't know if it's Sunday. I don't know if it's next weekend in San Antonio. There will probably come a time in the season where Tennessee needs more offense from its front court if it's truly going to win games and win a national championship. But for the most part, you just need that floor to be higher and be good rebounding, good defense, and let the backcourt drive the bus offensively. And Tennessee can beat a lot of teams if it does that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the group chat where it was like, that was a great close, Ethan, right? Like the way Tennessee closed the first half felt like, oh, Tennessee's going to win this game. Like the way they closed in the first half just felt like, oh, okay, Tennessee, they're going to be fine. And to Ryan's point, like Middleton, I think it was a great insight because Heupel's been so good at it in football. And we'll get more into that as we spend the next 20 minutes on Tennessee's offensive scheme changes here in football. But
I've written a lot of Middleton takeaways in football over the last 4 years. I think that might have been the first one I've written for basketball.
that's like a great like Tennessee sports bar thing to throw out. Like when you want to like really like let people know that you know ball. Be like, one of the things that's underrated about Josh Heupel at his Tennessee tenure is like he's really good at the Middleton. Like, and that's
22,
just something.
22 Middleton was Vince McMahon. It was special, man. I can't talk about it. That was Tennessee football in 2022 in Middleton. They'll still be talking about the Middleton of the double dip that Tennessee did against Florida in 2022. They should be talking about it for centuries, let alone decades. The 98-yard touchdown drive to end the half, only to come back and go 75 yards to score a touchdown on the first drive of the second half. Can't talk about it, man.
It's just great stuff. It's just great. And then you want to do it like 2021, where it was like, oh, you know what the easiest bet in the world is? Tennessee's going to start out in front. Like Tennessee had that streak of just like having lead. I bet Matt on this very program where I was like, whatever you want to bet, like Tennessee will be leading against Georgia after the first quarter. Like I have no idea. I doubt they're going to be able to hold on. But no one wins the first quarter like 2021 Tennessee. They were first quarter mercenaries, like just electric
lost
stuff.
The second quarter like Tennessee.
Yeah, well, hold on.
It never continued into halftime. It was never like big. What a first half! It was incredible.
What a first quarter.
The worst second quarter you've ever seen.
Goodness gracious! But hey, it was great stuff. You couldn't be late to a Tennessee football game in 2021.
No,
you're gonna miss the best part.
Sure.
Well, that's just the way it is. But anyway, Ethan, back to the serious topics. And like I said, we'll get back into how Christian Gas fits in at the Leo spot in 2025. But before we do that, what did you think of Tennessee using the press in this particular game? Because that was the highlight, was how Tennessee kind of surprised UCLA. What did you make of what Rick Barnes did to really frustrate and give UCLA so many problems with something they'd never seen before?
Yeah, that's why I say that this UCLA game was one of the more impressive Rick Barnes coached games of the season. Right there, probably behind Florida shorthanded. But it's like we were talking about, like Ryan mentioned earlier, that's kind of when the game changed. Like UCLA, I agree with everything Ryan said. UCLA wasn't necessarily overwhelming Tennessee, but the teams were trading blows. It was back and forth, and in my opinion, if you had to give an edge, it was to UCLA at that point. I believe in the group chat, we even told each other, we were like, we don't feel too great about this right now. And it's hard not to agree with us because Mara at the time was playing well because he wasn't tired yet. He was drawing a lot of attention, and that was opening it up for UCLA to get open shots, which they just didn't have when he got tired out and left in the second half. I think it was 20-19 or something like that. I rewatched the game earlier today, and Tennessee, they're going back and forth, and then they bring out that press, and UCLA looked like just a deer in the headlights. Like they just, their brains stopped working. I believe they had 2 or 3 straight possessions where they turned the ball over, and every one of them, I believe Tennessee capitalized on them. Namely the Chaz Lanier with the layup, and I believe he got fouled on that as well and made it a 3-point play. I mean, that's just massive. In a game like that was moving that slow and that defensively minded, for Tennessee just to give a right hook, like 7-0 run or 8-0 run, whatever it was, and then head into halftime with a considerable lead, a 2-possession, 3-possession lead. I mean, in a game like that, what had set up and what Mick Cronin, how his game plan was playing out, that just killed him, I feel like. And then exactly like Ryan said again, the first play of the second half, you just keep doing it. And the momentum just continues in Tennessee's favor. And from that point on, I mean, it just felt like, at least to me, the final 15 minutes up until like the final 5 minutes, Tennessee was just cruising. They felt completely in control. I think they got up to like 15 points. And they would have won the game by 20 points if they hadn't just completely taken their foot off the gas in the final 5 minutes. So yeah, it's like you said, that 3-quarter press and then the half-court trap, it completely bamboozled UCLA. They had no idea what to do about it. And once they did finally kind of make adjustments, at that point, Mara, like Ryan is saying, is completely tired. He didn't play, but 5 minutes maybe in the entire second half. And I mean, I feel like that just killed them offensively. That just they had no legitimate plan, no half court offense. It was just kind of Sky Clark chucking threes, and Vitello had a few nice moves down on the post, but ultimately that's not going to win you a game against Tennessee. You got to try a little harder than that.
Yeah, they just didn't have the horses. Like UCLA just felt like in the second half, like Tennessee is just better. Like this was just one of those where if Tennessee and UCLA play on a neutral site 100 times, like Tennessee wins like 85, 90 plus times, I think.
The thing I would add to that also that I didn't mention, UCLA by nature, they're not particularly elite at anything on offense. So they would have had to play a pretty perfect game for at least 30, 35 minutes to have a chance in that one. 15 minutes is just not going to do it. They don't have, they're not a good enough 3-point shooting team. And while Mara was doing some good things inside and Vitello was doing good things inside, ultimately Felix and Igor doing what they did on the boards and Cade doing what they did on the boards, it just completely extinguished what they were trying to do. I mean, seriously, in the final 15 minutes of the game, it felt like they were just scrambling to do anything. And I mean, we saw what happened because of it.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's elite at singularly one thing as a team, which is turning people over. Like it was hard to write a preview of them, like a scout of them, because it was just like they're basically average at everything besides turning people over. Like there's not really anything they're bad at, but that's like the only thing they did really that well. And you can talk about their inside guys; they score inside pretty well with Vitello. And yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure I missed it, but that specific press Tennessee ran. The only other time I can remember them running it all season is they ran it briefly against Auburn in the SEC tournament game. They threw it out there for a couple possessions. Zakai, talking to Zakai in the locker room, he claims that he was the one who said, let's run this. He suggested it to Justin Gainey, who calls Tennessee's defenses. And Rod Clark talked about how, UCLA, they got some ball handlers. They don't really have any true point guards. And Sky Clark is the closest thing they had to a true point guard. And he was on the bench with 2 fouls in the first half at that point. So it's like, let's see if we can bait these guys into making mistakes. And it's funny because you think of press, you think aggressive. You think of Tennessee's defense, about everything they do is aggressive. It's not an aggressive press. That press at all is just sit back, force them to the sideline, hope they dribble past midcourt into the corner and then immediately trap them there. And that's exactly how it happened 3 times. UCLA just picked up their dribble right. I mean, it's elementary stuff. Press break 101. Don't pick up your dribble in the corner right when you cross midcourt. And it changed the dynamic of the game. And then after that, I mean, I think Tennessee shot like 7 of 10 from 3 in the second half. So, Tennessee shoots 7 of 10 of 3 in any half. They're probably going to look very good doing it.
Do we think we see it against Kentucky?
Not particularly.
Yeah, I would say, limited because of what Ryan just said. And I mean, especially considering I think Kentucky has A, more experienced, and B, just overall better guards. I don't really see Otego doing what UCLA was doing in that. I don't see Lamont Butler. Honestly, I don't see any of them. Not a single Kentucky guard do I really see doing that. Maybe the freshman, Colin Chandler, but he doesn't even take the ball down. So I don't know how effective it would necessarily be against Kentucky to the way it was against UCLA.
And I think Kentucky could burn you on it some too. Like they get some open shots off of it. That's the thing. When UCLA broke it a handful of times, and Tennessee didn't force turnovers, but Tennessee was able to get set in their half-court defense every single time before. I would worry about Kentucky with their shooting and Butler. I just think he's a different level point guard than anyone UCLA had.
Why the Vols will avoid a 3-game sweep against Kentucky on Friday, and why they will get swept on Friday against Kentucky, Ethan Stowe. What is your biggest reason for and against it with this one?
The biggest reason for why they won't, I'll start positive. The biggest reason why Tennessee will pick up one of 2 is Kentucky. Ryan mentioned this a little bit earlier in his tweet, so I'll try and dumb it down just to not steal his points. Kentucky shot like a ridiculously consistent margin in both games.
12 and
They were
24.
50% from the field exactly in both games,
Mm.
which mean and 50% from three in both games, which, you know, Kentucky's a fantastic 3-point shooting team. That's exactly what they want to do. It was a big game and they executed. You know, they went out and they did it. I think they were 12 of 24 both times, actually. It's crazy how similar Kentucky was able to do it, not once but twice, to Tennessee, which, you know, obviously one of the best defenses in the country. And
that goes back
obviously,
last year too, right? Like Kentucky's shot like 50% around it from three. Like, is it 3 or 4 games straight?
I think it's 3 straight to the game in Knoxville to end the
Okay.
regular season last year.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I love this take that I'm about to say, but I feel like Kentucky can control the game more so than Tennessee can. Like if Kentucky goes out there and shoots 50% from three again, I don't see a path to Tennessee winning it. And in that sense, it feels like no matter how well Tennessee plays defense, I mean, the Vols have the number 1 3-point perimeter defense in the country. And they got Jemima Shack and Zakai Ziegler guarding you. And Kentucky is still doing that well. If Kentucky shoots 50% from three again, like it feels like it's over. Now, yeah, the law of averages going to the other side of why Kentucky, I guess, can beat you. And honestly, what I just said kind of goes both ways. If Kentucky controls the game like they want to, they shoot crazy from three again, they move at their pace, they speed Tennessee up. Like it just doesn't feel like the Vols have a shot. Now, if they just fall back to the mean, it really feels like Kentucky just doesn't have that many. Like they're not a particularly great offensive rebounding team. They got absolutely decimated by Alabama when they didn't shoot too well in the SEC tournament. I mean, all it really takes is, I'm not necessarily saying a bad shooting outing, but Zakai and Jemai playing at the absolute top of their game, playing, you know, 2 of the better games they played this season. The Vols getting not necessarily overwhelming pressure inside, but just some interior offense because they're not very good guarding the boards or guarding the rim anyway. I'd love to see some things. This would be fantastic if Igor could have his best game of the season right now. Not trending in that direction, I'd say, but there's a lot of paths both ways. It's ultimately, I genuinely believe Kentucky, and it's scary in my opinion, but I think Kentucky kind of will control whether or not they win this one or not.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, you just never know. Like Igor could absolutely have a fantastic game against Kentucky. Like with the defense, and he'll probably get good looks. Like I would not be surprised if Igor had a good shooting game against Kentucky and built off his rebounding. Like what they really just need from Igor is the rebounding that you saw against UCLA and him taking those top of the key threes. Because I just think it's a math game against Kentucky that for them to win, they're going to have to shoot the ball well. I think Chaz has to be nuclear. Like he has to go nuclear against Kentucky because I just don't see a scenario based on the recent track record here that Tennessee is going to be able, like even if you stifle Kentucky a little bit more than you have the previous 2 meetings, Kentucky's still going to make a lot of threes. I just think that the way they play and the way that this matchup has gone, like to not expect Kentucky to shoot the ball well against Tennessee, I think it's probably I don't know, little too orange tinted glasses for me. I think it's going to happen. I think they're going to, or at least they're going to get shots up. And I just think to combat it, it can't just be like, well, we got to settle in defensively and we just got to lock them down. It's like, no, you need Chaz to go off. You need Zakai to make those threes that he just made on Saturday. You need Gainey to attack the rim and draw fouls. And you need Igor to, like, where Igor's shooting like 80% from the top of the key threes. Like, it can't be, like, it has to be 80%. Like, nobody, like, his 3-point stroke at the top of the key is fantastic. Like I'm always assuming it's going in. He should be doing the Steph Curry, like just not even looking at the ball going in when he's pulling up from the top of the key threes because it's never a miss. Like it's never a miss. 80% of the time it works every time. Ryan Schumpert.
And I guess is that right? Do not bully Chase. I just disagree. Like I just kind of disagree completely with most of what you just said. Like I think Tennessee needs to play good defense to win this game. Yes, Kentucky's going to hit shots. Yes, agree with your point there. One, I would say from the jump, there's a big difference between making 50% of your 3-pointers and 37% of your 3-pointers, which is what Kentucky shoots and is a really good mark. that in those 2 games, instead of 12 of 24, that would be 9 of 24. So that would have made a big difference and still would have been a good shooting game from Kentucky in both of them. But like, I see what your point is, and like, I get your point about the 3-point shooting. Like, I think some of that's just going to happen probably. Like, you can't count on it. I think Tennessee needs to just be better, more sound defensively as a whole. Give up less at the rim in this game. Give up less shots at the basket. Like, Tennessee's defense was it wasn't just as simple as Kentucky hit a lot of 3-pointers and they were all really difficult. And that's, wow, shucks. Tennessee, their defense was good. Kentucky was just better. And look, there's some of that. Some of it you tip your cap. Some of it, Tennessee did not play very good defense, and that is a credit to Kentucky because I think Kentucky runs very hard stuff to defend. And I think the type of teams that Tennessee stifles defensively are teams that play a lot of isolation and have 1 or 2 guys that they say go get buckets. That's the opposite of how Kentucky plays. Kentucky has a bunch of different guys that can score. It's a lot of off-ball movement. They make all 5 players defend. I think that can give Tennessee issues. So I think all 5 of those Tennessee's guys on the court have to be locked in. It's not just about defending the 3-point line, but I think defense as a whole is what I would emphasize. And yeah, I mean, offensively, you hope shots go in. You hope Chaz has a good game. Like, I mean, Tennessee's dependent on making shots from the perimeter to be a good offensive team for the most part, or at least making jump shots. Sometimes it can be the mid-range. They can have a lot of success there. Obviously, to a degree, that stuff has to happen. But if I'm Tennessee, I'm laser focused on the defensive end, and I'm hoping the offensive stuff works. The one other thing I will say, Lamont Butler did not play any of the first game, and he got hurt with like about 10 minutes left, I feel like, in the second game and didn't come back in. I thought he was a problem for Tennessee in the game. The 30 minutes that he did play, I thought he was an absolute problem and a pest. Zakai really did not get going in that game nearly as much until after Butler exited. Isn't to say you can't have success with him on the court, but I think that's one thing that we didn't necessarily feel like a massive role in the regular season games because he didn't play and then he wasn't in there in winning time. But Butler's a huge piece for Kentucky. I mean, he's the guy that defends for Kentucky. He sets the tone defensively and is the one guy you can really count on the defensive end on a team that's pretty shaky overall defensively.
That's a great. I mean, he's if I remember correctly, he's the point guard on a team that went to the national championship game.
Yep.
Like he's one of the few. He's one of the few guys I'd say legitimately that can actually give Zakai problems. I agree with everything Ryan just said.
Well, is that the biggest reason that you think Tennessee avoids getting swept? And what do you think is the biggest reason Tennessee ultimately does get swept, Ryan?
Yeah, I think the ultimate, or why I think Tennessee doesn't get swept, is I think Tennessee is the better team. Like,
yeah, they're favored 4.5. Like, they should win.
I know they lost 2 games in the regular season, but I think Tennessee is a better basketball team than Kentucky. Why they wouldn't, I think, is to that point. I genuinely think Kentucky is a bad matchup for Tennessee. Like, if to that point, if a team has beaten someone twice that they're not as good as, generally there's a reason why. It's not just complete fluke. And there was
it's like Florida can't start 0-6 in conference play in baseball. They're a top 10 team. It's like, well, no, they can. It's like they won't lose every game at Lindsey Nelson. That's hard to sweep a good team like Florida. But it happens. Like, teams lose 3 straight times against teams. Like, that does happen.
Yeah, I'm not. To Ethan's point a minute ago, or his sentence a minute ago of like, I'm not 100% sure I believe this take. So I'm still in that phrase. I'm not 100% sure I believe this take. I think it's hard to beat a team 3 times thing is so over dramatized. I don't care. I don't think it's actually that difficult.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
If Tennessee was playing Texas in the Sweet 16, trust me, I would have no concerns about Tennessee beating a team 3 times. None. 0. I mean, zilch.
They're always a good matchup for Bama. Like, they're always going to be like, I think I'm expecting them to beat Bama over and over again. I just think they play Bama well. And it just seems like that is something, I don't know. Like you said, there's just certain teams or certain matchups or whatever where you're like, no, actually, I could see them continuing to beat this same team over and over again. I think they would beat UCLA over and over again in a lot of games. It would not surprise me just with the way things are. So we'll see. I mean, we're not going to do our official, like, Ryan, you can hold off because it's, you can hold off your prediction for later in the week. But Ethan, what is your prediction here on Friday?
I think Tennessee's going to win because, like, I cannot imagine Kentucky shooting that well just from the field again. I understand the matchup thing. I understand that, and I agree with what Ryan said. I genuinely think Kentucky's a bad matchup. But Tennessee's too good of a defensive team for me to believe that a team is going to shoot that well 3 times in a row. And I think if Kentucky can't shoot the ball, or at the very least can't shoot the ball as scorchingly hot as they did last time, they don't have the defense at all. And I don't know. I agree with you. I think Tennessee's the better team. It's just Kentucky's gone nuclear from range and from the field every time they play. And I don't think that's going to happen 3 times in a row.
No matter what, I'm just excited that this game's happening in a way. I mean, here's what I would do. Like, if this is any kind of and Ryan, hold off here. Like, I know it's you and Ethan's show, but let me get this in before the bullying commences. Just hold on. Let me just say this. I'm dropping the SEC and Big Ten tournament after this. Like, with all the, like, I think this is going to be part of the norm now, is we're going to have a lot of SEC and Big Ten teams making deep runs here year over year. We don't need to do the SEC tournament anymore. And as someone who just thought that it was a little bit overblown in terms of what the rest and lack thereof for Tennessee playing all weekend was actually going to mean for Tennessee basketball this week, I just don't think it's necessary. So I just don't think it's necessary. And
Give it a cap. Give it a cap shades on that one. Give it a cap.
What a fun show. This is what people come in for here for the Vols Sports Guys. And if you're not watching on YouTube, like, you're really missing out here for the last 30 seconds of this very program. But what I will say is that, look, I lost my complete train of thought, and I'm just talking to try and get it back here at this point.
You were talking about how the SEC and Big Ten are going to cancel things that they're going to make them a lot of money.
Yeah, that back to that point. Like, like, thank you for getting me back on the right track there. It just seems kind of silly now. Like, we're like, okay, this makes matchups, but I also, part of me is like, Kentucky, Tennessee in the Sweet 16 for a chance at the Elite Eight, for Tennessee to get back to the Elite Eight, for, like, just the actual ramifications on both sides of this and how both fan bases are going to handle a win and or a loss is going to be crazy. I think this game itself is going to be packed with Tennessee and Kentucky fans. Like, I think this is going to be a pretty strong turnout on both sides. I don't love that it's in the football stadium. It seems like the seats suck. Yeah, I don't like that. But I also just think it's going to get chippy. Like, there's just no way this game. I mean, Lamont Butler talking about, like, oh, we're going to win. Like, Zakai and this team, they saw this. They know. And Zakai, like you said, like, he knows he didn't play well against Lamont Butler last time. I just think this is going to be such a intense, big time feel that I don't know. Just, like, it's going to suck if Tennessee does not, like, I don't know. I think Tennessee's going to win too. My gut is Tennessee finds a way to win this, but I think it's going to be absolutely nauseating how Tennessee finds a way to win this game. I think it's going to be something comes down last possession potentially. I just think this is going to be close. I think it's going to be back and forth. And I think Chaz is going to have another great game. And I think Tennessee is going to shoot the ball pretty well, but I also think Kentucky will. And I think this is going to be a high scoring Mizzou Tennessee-like game. And I think you hope you win 85-81 or 78-74. But that's what I think Tennessee's got to do. Because if you're playing the game of, like, we'll make, it's kind of goes back to what Ethan said. Like, Kentucky is more likely to dictate the terms of how this game is going to go play style wise. And I think Tennessee is just going to have to shoot the ball well. I think they're going, like, there's just no way around Tennessee winning this game if the 3 guards don't shoot the ball well or do their job. Like Gainey at the line, Chaz from deep, and Zakai taking open threes when he has them. Like, I don't think there's any way around that for this game. But I just think it's going to be a great game to watch. I can't wait to watch it on Friday. Yeah,
it's going to be, I mean, here's a question that Ethan, the two of us didn't talk about this, so I don't know if, it's obviously our show. I'm sorry to step on your toes and ask this question. Does it feel to y'all, like, to me, it feels like the pressure's on Tennessee in this game?
Yeah.
I don't know how y'all feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's year 1 for Pope.
Which is
like,
weird.
He's playing with fool's gold right here. Like, Calipari hadn't gotten to the Sweet 16 in how long?
2019.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
I don't think Mark Pope has. I don't think Mark Pope has ever won an NCAA tournament game before he got like that win over Troy. I think was his first win.
It was.
So
like he's playing with house money. Like, they're just kind of ahead of schedule.
It's just but it's just like I completely agree, but it's crazy that Tennessee and Kentucky are playing in an NCAA tournament game, and they're similarly seeded. It's not like this is a 2-11 game and Kentucky snuck into the tournament, and it feels like the pressure's on Tennessee because it's Mark Pope's first year, and who knows how many more years Rick Barnes will coach, but I don't think Tennessee's going to have a team as good next year, and probably I would say it's unlikely that Rick Barnes coaches another team at Tennessee that's as good as this one. So I think all that puts the pressure on Tennessee.
Hold on. Let's just see. Once we get Amit and Burries in the boat, let's just cool off here. It's
going to be tough to replace the guy Ziegler, and that's the other thing.
Rutgers did a great job with those 2 5-stars this year. They looked a lot like Tennessee.
Jury's still out on Rutgers. I think Ace Bailey and was it Ron Harper's son?
Dylan Harper.
Dylan Harper, yeah. You just give them a couple more games. They're right there. I think Rutgers is turning the corner.
I actually will say that those two, a lot of people were looking at Rutgers and they're like, oh, you can't win with freshmen. That's the point. I don't think that's the point. Both those guys were pretty good.
Also, Kentucky had 5 freshmen on a national title team starting.
I think that's more of a recent take since the portal and everybody.
But I mean, still, UConn's had true freshmen 5-stars start on national title teams. You had
not been elite dogs though. One.
That's fine, but I mean, even Kennedy Chandler was awesome as a 5-star true freshman for Tennessee. Absolutely electric, and was the best player on a team that was upset in the second round. But I mean, I don't know. That kind of defeats my whole point.
In the second round. But I do generally agree. I think it's, especially with a coach like Rick Barnes, you're better off trying to get veteran guys that are scorers as opposed to freshmen. And the point's mute. I mean, we'll see what happens with Braden Burries. Tennessee's not getting Nate Amit, so that point's mute. But we'll see.
Who's the other one? Who's the other one? The former Miami commit. Who's it? What's his name?
Yeah, I should notice. I talked to him. Matthew.
It's something like Amit, but it's not Amit. Am I wrong? Isn't it something Abel?
Yeah, Matthew Abel. Yeah, so we'll see what happens there too. He visited Tennessee, Alabama, Baylor the last week of the regular season, so we'll see. But he's a lower 5-star guy. Obviously a good player, but not quite.
Maybe a potential 2-year guy though.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably plausible.
Well, that's all I've got here on this side of things in terms of basketball. We'll wrap up quickly on the baseball side. Ethan, Ryan was kind of away from Tennessee baseball over the weekend, so I know you were able to really lock in on Teegan Kuhns and his outing on Saturday. It was the all-time worst week for Tennessee because they don't play another Thursday, Friday, Saturday situation again until the last game, the weekend of the series of the season against Arkansas. And of course, the week that Tennessee plays on Friday, and just the way the circumstances went in terms of tournament stuff, where I'm like, oh, cool, some more overrun here with Tennessee baseball.
Overrun wasn't that bad though. I mean,
Thursday
was Thursday. You mean?
Thursday, yes.
Thursday was bad. I was able to watch the entirety of the Friday and Saturday games. So
okay.
It couldn't have been that bad if I was able
okay, well, then I can go back to you. I didn't know how much I was ready for Ethan.
Yeah, no, I didn't watch a second on Thursday, but I've watched once my this old man over here could get figure out how to watch ESPN to work by the second inning of the Friday game. I watched the entirety of Friday and Saturday. Took me a minute.
Check the batteries?
You wouldn't believe it, man. What a tough scene it was at that Avid Hotel.
There's nothing more, but was it just you though, and not other people around?
No, it was a problem with Rick too. Rick eventually got a VPN on there and got around it.
Oh, okay. Because it's more awkward when you have other people in the room waiting on you. Yeah. There's nothing more uncomfortable than it not working correctly when other people are just we're waiting, what's going on here? And you just because you don't think straight, you start sweating. It's uncomfortable. Not having it work.
Right.
Whole episode of Superstore on ABC about this very thing at a Grammys party, I think is what it was. Great show, Superstore. Ended a couple years ago, but fantastic show. Great lighthearted sitcom. But naturally, that ends us with the takeaways from this weekend. My strongest takeaway, Ryan Schumpert, was Teegan Kuhns got more innings, and Teegan Kuhns delivered, and looks like we talked about it last week. AJ Russell, we'll see when he gets back in April, but this time, if Teegan makes the most of it, you could see a scenario where it's like, oh, okay, he's entered the Blade Tidwell zone, and it's now Teegan's show, and he's going to be one of your weekend starters. I came away like that dude's stuff is electric, and they let him go. How many innings did he end up? Was it 5 or 6?
Four and a third, I believe.
So he got to 4. Okay, he didn't get to the 5th inning. Okay, or he
got
to the
to
5th
the
inning.
fifth
He
inning,
left.
he just didn't
That's what I thought.
finish
I couldn't
it.
remember if he left in the 5th or 6th. But he was great, and I can't say enough great things about Teegan Kuhns, man. Like, that guy is as advertised, and he's like the perfect story of like the off season of like, oh, watch out for Teegan Kuhns, and you're like, all right, we'll see, and you're like, no, Teegan Kuhns, and then it's like, oh, Teegan Kuhns. It's just that's all you got to say. Teegan Kuhns, Ryan Schumpert.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't think that it was necessarily surprising to me. To me, it felt like it was more just a matter of time. Which isn't to diminish what he did. It's really important. I think especially when you're looking at Tennessee's pitching staff right now with A.J. Russell out and Tanner Franklin being a little inconsistent in open SEC play, though I thought he did some good stuff this weekend, and albeit 2 short outings, but 2 good outings. But like Brandon Arvidsson hasn't hit the ground running. So Tennessee needs arms that can get a chunk of outs, and Kuhns proved to be that. And here's a little take for you. You want to take, Chase? Teegan Kuhns' slow start.
Hold on. What?
Teegan Kuhns' slow build up to start the season is going to prove to be a big blessing for this team. As a true freshman, instead of throwing a ton of innings from the jump and potentially being worn out by April, May, now and really he's just now getting built up in late March to throw starter type innings. He's going to really limit his pitches over the course of the season. I think that could prove to be a good thing for Tennessee.
I like that. Final thing, I will say, I am concerned based on what you're hearing though, Ryan. Like, how big is your panic meter on how long Gavin Keelan's going to be out? Because hamstrings are dicey, man. Hamstrings, you've got to be so careful bringing these guys back from hamstring injuries. Like, he missed the whole series. I don't know. Like, you could see him back soon. You could also, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone for a while. Like, I don't know. Like, and that's something where he's your best hitter. Like, Gavin Keelan's been your best hitter this year, and you got out of Tuscaloosa with a series win, but that is something to monitor now that we're in the heart of SEC play, is that, like, yeah, you got out of Tuscaloosa with a victory, or with 2 victories, but, man, Gavin Keelan's got to find his way back in the lineup, because I still have questions about where this lineup ultimately is offensively over the course of the year. Great small ball stuff. Shout out to... why am I blanking? Antigua, Ariel, and he was awesome this weekend. And he's really settled into the Cal Stark of Tennessee baseball in 2025. And he's just electric at short, just your best defensive player, and just makes everything look easy at short. And line drives at the middle, which were great. I'm just here for it. Like, Ariel Antigua is just so much fun to watch on a baseball diamond. But I just look at this lineup, and it's not 23, but it's definitely not 24. And Gavin Keelan, with his 10 home runs and just what he's done at the top of the lineup to start this year, I think it's fair to be kind of concerned about what's real there and how long Tennessee might be without him.
I don't think it's concerning, because just looking at the schedule of what's next, I mean, Tennessee's, with A&M being the disaster that they are, Tennessee's schedule is incredibly back heavy. So it's at South Carolina this weekend. I mean, road series are rarely easy, but a team Tennessee's a good bit better than A&M at home. A team Tennessee's a good bit better than at Ole Miss, one of the worst teams in the league, Kentucky at home. Like, my guess would be that Keelan, and this is pure guess, speculation, no inside info, I would guess we see him back in the starting lineup for the A&M series. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I think your point as a whole is fair about, like, all right, what's the ceiling of this offense? What does, when you're starting to talk about a push in the postseason and trying to win the national championship again? But when you're just talking about SEC play, especially with Tennessee's schedule, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think Tennessee, you saw Ariel Antigua step up. You saw Dalton Bargo step up this past weekend. Those two and what Braden Crinsell did, to me, were my 3 big takeaways of the weekend. With that in mind, I just don't think it kills them to have. I think they can continue to stack SEC wins and SEC series wins, at least over the next couple weeks, if Keelan's not in the fold. But your point about, long-term ceiling and Keelan's importance there, I think is very accurate, very significant.
Used to be so careful, and that's what Ethan was saying this weekend. Like, he's like, I'm all in on what Krenzel was doing. Shout out to Craig Krenzel and his son, because I asked Jack about that. I'm like, is that his son? That can't be that many Krenzels. And it's like, yeah, it's his son. So we couldn't get Manny Ramirez's son in here, but we did get Craig Krenzel's son. So that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But he's great. Like, Krenzel is going to be a bullpen arm for Tennessee. And also Nate Snead and company, like, they just have so many different options. Dylan Loy, your guy, he was great this weekend again.
Boys.
I mean, he's great. And my dad's in on Dylan Loy. My dad's a Dylan
yes.
Loy guy.
He's a Loy boy. I'm going to get him a business card. Just says he is a member of the Loy boys. But yeah, no, Krenzel, a fun little Krenzel story. He was a guy, he didn't pitch, I don't think, any in the fall. He was very little. And he was impressive in the preseason, and Tennessee's Pizza Series, they closed it out. It was tied. I think he was in. I think it was either him or Combs, got the final out of what was a tie game. I think it was Combs in the Pizza Series, and Krenzel had been pitching for the other team. So it was 1-1 going into game 3, and it was tied. And Tennessee baseball does this drill, or this competition that I don't really understand it. It's literally one-on-one hitter versus pitcher on the field. I don't really know how they decide what's a hit and what's not a hit. I mean, sometimes it's obvious. But Krenzel got the final out, the winning. I think he got 2 or 3 outs in that scenario and got the win for his team in the Pizza Series. So he was kind of a big standout in the preseason, and a guy that had shown, obviously it's a scrimmage. It's not the biggest deal in the world. But for a true freshman, like that was, at that point, was as big as the stages had been for him. And he was really good. And I think you saw that again. First SEC action, he certainly was not afraid of the stage in Tuscaloosa over the weekend.
Ethan Stone, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Saturday Down South this week?
Yes, I'm not going to be writing too much about the tournament this week. I'm going to be focused on the more evergreen stuff, but our team obviously is still going to have Sweet 16 Elite 8 coverage coming up as we transition into softball and baseball, and then also some NCAA women's tournament as well. A lot of stuff happening. We'll have full coverage of Saturday Down South.
I love it. Keep up the great work, my friend. And Ryan Schumpert, what about you over at RockyTopInsider.com as well?
Yeah, plenty of really all things Tennessee sports. Football gets back going Tuesday, so we'll have some stuff from that. And then Tennessee baseball, we'll have coverage of that. And then certainly all eyes on Indianapolis and the Sweet 16 this weekend.
I love it. Go check out Rocky Top Insider and Saturday Down South if you have not already. Ryan, Ethan, thank you as always, and I'll talk to y'all next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.